Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to the first of what I hope are many editions of Smack Talk here on SmarkOutMoment.com. I am your host, the Smark with the Bark, the fan with the plan, and I don't know, a bunch of all other sorts of lame catchphrases, Tony Mango. With me today is my buddy, Chris Dace. Chris, say hello to the nice people out there that are going to be very nice and leave us a lot of comments.
How you doing out there in Bloggerland? This is the Dace Man coming to you from Iowa.
Ooh, Iowa. It's a pain.
Woo, woo, woo. You know it.
Oh, exactly. We're going to run down what's going on in the world of professional wrestling this week. Before we get started, let me address the audio problems we're having here. Now, this is just a test, so be nice. We're going to have a lot of problems here. First off, I am sick, so I probably sound terrible. Second, of course, I am recording this in a very, very poor method, but I don't have any money to get anything better than that, so click on those ads. We're going to try to keep tweaking things in here, make each show better than the last, so send me your suggestions for things that you want to see on the show. We will have video eventually, so if you want to see that, I already got that covered. This is a work in progress, so keep that in mind, but we'll eventually get there. So, we got a lot of things to talk about this week. First things first, Vengeance. Now, I thought overall that it was a pretty decent pay-per-view. First off, tell me your thoughts about it, Dace. I know we watched it together, but let's run it down for the people that weren't there in the same room as us.
Well, I think overall, when it came to the actual wrestling portion of the pay-per-view, it wasn't that thrilling, but humor-wise, I know there was a lot of times that we were all laughing our asses off it. There was a couple good spots in it. I did actually enjoy the Last Man Standing match, and the Big Show Mark Henry thing, it was kind of predictable when they started going up, so that wasn't thrilling to me when that ring collapsed again.
The ring collapse, sorry. Well, actually, let's get to that in a little bit because I want to talk a little bit about that on my own, because I kind of agree with you there about it being predictable. First off, there was the tag team match with Air Boom and Jack Swagger and Dolph Ziggler. I thought it was a great match. The thing that bothered me about you could package this together, that and the Zack Ryder United States title match. The thing that bothered me about it was I was kind of expecting Air Boom to drop the titles and Swagger and Ziggler to be so enraptured in it that's when Ryder would come out, and then Vicky would be flipping out because she would, of course, he just wrestled a match and all this kind of stuff, and then Air Boom would cost Ziggler the United States title. Now, even though that didn't happen, I still thought that they were good matches, but I was kind of let down that it was in reverse of what I thought it should be. Like, Are you thinking that maybe the same thing, that like him being able to defend the title against Zack Ryder after he had already lost the previous match made Dolph Ziggler kind of go the opposite way? Like, shouldn't it have been he wins the first match, but he's so worn out he loses the second, rather than he can't win the first, but then he just gets that Cena jump and is able to pull it out against Ryder? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with you on that whole point. It kind of makes the like you said, the John Cena approach with like, oh, you can't hurt me. And it kind of made Ryder look bad a little bit, even though it was a decent match. The fact that Ryder couldn't come out and close the deal after, like you said, a great match between the tag team champs and Ziggler and Swagger. But I just, the whole point for that, like at least for me, and I would assume a lot of people out there, was the Zack Ryder Dolph Ziggler match was something that we actually were getting invested in, because this is like one of the most legit storylines they've done in a while.
Right. It's even carried over onto his TV show, if you could call it that. So I was a little bit disappointed in that. I thought they were good matches, and I hope that the feuds continue, but I kind of went for a little bit more. Then there was the Divas Championship match with Beth Phoenix and Eve Torres. Beth, I kind of figured that Beth would win, and that's not really that surprising to me. Divas matches, what are you going to do?
Exactly. I think we commented more during that pay-per-view on that referee than we did the actual Divas match.
Oh, yeah. What's his name? He just goes by Black Ref, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Black Ref is awesome. I mean, he was the highlight of that match by the things that he was doing, the faces that he was making and everything. It's great.
Oh yeah, because he was so enthusiastic for a Divas match. It was hilarious.
Well, he got the opportunity that everybody else did that night, which was apparently groping Eve because I don't know. Eve did it herself earlier in the match, then he did it, and then I don't know. Something was up that night.
I also remember like the high point of that entire match was just Lawler asking the question to Booker, "Hey, could you imagine being married to Beth Phoenix?" And Booker just went, "Yes," and that was like the end of the conversation. That was like a huge point. Like we couldn't stop laughing at that.
Right. He didn't elaborate at all on it whatsoever. Just yes. The only time that Booker is short for words. Usually he would just ramble on about nonsense and nobody would understand what he was saying in the first place. Maybe he figured that out, and that's why he figured that just yes was a better response.
Oh yeah.
Sheamus and Christian, I wasn't really that big of a fan of it. I mean, it wasn't, as I said on the review, it wasn't awful, but it could have been so much better.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Christian, and actually, for those of you who watched, I think SmackDown on the 28th or tonight, whenever, well, we're recording here on the 20th, but the Christian Punk match was amazing. And for Christian to go into a match with Sheamus, who's kind of a brute, it kind of takes a little away from Christian with his ability of things to do.
Right, because if he's going to be the smart one, while
Mm-hmm.
Sheamus is like the powerful one, you would think that there'd be more opportunities in the match for Christian to get a lot of reversals and uh, Sheamus to pull like the big man lunges and Christian moves out of the way and all that kind of stuff. But it was more of just like back and forth, going through the motions, and I don't know. I expected
Yeah,
more.
yeah, because even it's hard to believe this, but Sheamus is still kind of a rookie when it comes to WWE years, and Christian's been in it so long that I felt like Christian was kind of limited because of who he was working with.
A little bit, yeah. I'm something that people might know from my website. Uh, One of the highest rated articles on my website. It's called "The Sheamus Push Makes No Sense." Now, somebody called me out on it recently, saying that I was dead wrong about Sheamus because I say in the article that I don't think he's this main event guy. To an extent, I was wrong, but I still agree that at that time, which I wrote it right about the time that they gave him the world title, uh, I still think that they pushed him way too hard, way too fast, and he's only now getting to the point where I can kind of see him as a championship type of guy. I don't really buy into the idea that he has half as many world titles as Shawn Michaels does, and he's been there only that long. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that
And that,
kind
yeah,
of irks me
just
there.
things like that is just, yeah, he's still a rookie, and I think he has a lot of potential, and he could be like that type of powerhouse that like the kind of how Lesnar blew up. He could be that, but I just still think he needs more years, and I'm glad they kind of slowed it down with him a little bit.
Yeah, he's not the guy right now like he was then.
Mm-hmm.
They had the whole period of time where on Raw, um, this was before the Nexus thing. Well, even during the Nexus thing, actually, they had him set up as the heel on Raw, and then Nexus comes along and he starts getting pushed aside a little bit. But then they give him another world title, and it was kind of like, what was the purpose of that? Considering he won that in, I think it was a fatal 4-way, and the whole focus of the match wasn't that Sheamus was this powerful guy. It was just like they gave him the title for something to do. And I've never been a fan of that at all. That always drives me nuts whenever it seems like they switch something just for the hell of it. Like what they have been doing with another rookie that's a 2-time world champion now with Del Rio. I do
Mm-hmm.
not understand how Del Rio was given that title, and then for the next 4 weeks on Raw, he was pushed to the back burner. He wasn't even on the 1 week because of the visa issues. And then he
Mm-hmm.
drops the title, and then he just wins it right back. Why not just have him retain it at that one match and keep him a 2-month long title reign? I don't get it. But then
Yeah,
again, I'm not the person who likes Hornswoggle either. So
I mean, it's a pitfall at WWE when it comes to the newer guys. They get really high on them, push them really hard, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, he's a Jack Swagger. He's a one-time world champion, and now he's tag teaming with Michael Cole.
exactly,
So,
they seemed like they have this something that we are going to get into a little bit about TNA, where they have this fear that if they put too much emphasis on somebody, that they're going to become maybe the next Brock Lesnar, like you were talking about, and then they're suddenly going to leave again. And these people are leaving anyway if they're going to be treated poorly. So I don't understand why they can't see that connection there and actually build up somebody slow. I've always been a big fan of the tag team champion splitting, getting the Intercontinental title or the U.S. title, then moving on to the main event, and then eventually becoming the world champion. You need that little bit of a main event run in between. Something like what Shawn Michaels did. It worked for Bret Hart, worked for Steve Austin. Every one of these great names, except for Hulk Hogan and The Undertaker, as far as I can remember. Because even John Cena, he didn't have the tag titles, but he went from starting off small, went to the United States title, eventually got to the main event, then worked his way to being the champion, and then stood there and didn't progress at all. So getting back to Vengeance, we had the Sheamus match, and then we go to The Miz and R-Truth against CM Punk and Triple H. The highlight of this, actually, I think, was the promo ahead of time, where Truth and Miz were arguing about, he said we suck up good, and no, he said we suck up well, all that kind of stuff. I thought that was great. They seem to have a ton of fun together when they're working on this kind of crap, and even though they're a little bit too silly, it's worth it just to watch the crap that they pull out on the ring. I mean, I like that better than the match itself. I don't know about you.
Oh yeah, unfortunately, this match, like the whole like allure to CM Punk was the unpredictability of the storyline, and it just felt like this was it was coming. Lauren Knight is taking over, and then Kevin Nash showing up. It all felt like that was going to happen.
Mm-hmm. From the very get-go, as soon as they announced that Triple H and Punk were going to work with Miz and Truth, it was like, all right, well, how much into the match does Kevin Nash come out?
Yeah.
I was waiting for him to come out in a completely different way. It didn't happen the way that I was expecting it to, but I mean, when you have something like the Kevin Nash build-up and it went absolutely nowhere, you are assuming that he's going to come back eventually and feud with CM Punk. So I don't know why they're switching it over directly to Triple H and bypassing Punk completely. It seems like, and people have been critical of this kind of thing in the past, Triple H stealing the thunder one more time and taking it out from Punk. Punk goes from being the guy that everybody's talking about. Suddenly Triple H comes back. He's a good guy. Then now it's Triple H against Nash. I mean, they talked about it a little bit on Raw with the attack and everything, and there was nothing about Punk in that.
Mm-hmm. And they completely switched gears with Punk and bringing him out onto Del Rio's. So it was, like you said, it's so weird how like they were building and building and building, and then all of a sudden we're going to go two completely different directions.
Right. Del Rio and Punk, we'll talk about that a little bit when we start getting into Survivor Series. There was Randy Orton against Cody Rhodes. Again, I thought this was kind of like the Sheamus match. It wasn't really anything special, but it was entertaining, but I don't know. I wanted a little bit more. One of the things that bothered me about this match, though, was the fact that it was a non-title match immediately meant that Randy Orton was going to win.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate going into a match knowing that something's going to happen. It was just one of the reasons why I don't like those you lose and you're fired stipulations or you lose and you're retired. Because if you have a retiree match, then you know that if the guy is young and he's not injured, he's not going to retire. And you know that if he's old and he's planning on retiring, then you know he's going to lose, like Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels and everything like that. And with the firing matches, you know that nobody's going to be fired anyway, so that is pointless. But you know that they're going to fire the person because that way they get some a little bit of a story. If the person doesn't lose and they don't get fired, then who gives a shit who watches Monday Night Raw the next night? So Orton being able to beat Cody Rhodes without Cody losing the title points out immediately that Cody is going to lose the match.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, things like that are very irritating. They're two superb athletes, and I enjoy each and every one of their encounters. Cody is definitely up and coming, and Orton is like, I know he's been around for years now, but it's still like feels like he hasn't peaked because he only gets better as age comes. So he's kind of like a Shawn Michaels where like every match is 110%. And like you said, with the whole title thing, saying, "Oh, it's not on the line," it kind of gives the fact that Cody is going to lose.
Right.
Where they could have did the whole title thing and even if Orton held it for a little while, it wouldn't do anything to Orton to hold the IC title for like a month or so, or even for a week.
Yeah, they could have had something happen on SmackDown, which have his rematch happen on SmackDown, make people want to tune in, do something along those lines. Because especially with the old Intercontinental title, if you want to bring prestige back to that, and they talk about this all the time, and I don't get it. They always keep saying that they want to bring prestige back to these titles, and then they don't do anything with it. So I love the retro title, but when's the last time that Cody defended it? Against what? Ted DiBiase 2 months ago or something like that? Ted wasn't going to win.
Yeah. I feel like they dropped the feud with that, or they dropped the ball with that feud too.
Yeah, Ted really went from being the guy that people thought was going to beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania to not even being on SmackDown anymore. And that's pretty sad. Now he's working on the DiBiase posse, and that seems like that's all he's going to be doing at WrestleMania because they're not building him up at all for anything.
Yeah. And it's a shame because like there's a lot of talents that they do that to that could be huge names, and instead they bring people back like Triple H and The Rock.
All right. How many times have we heard The Rock is going to be at Survivor Series before they even did the angle with Cena on Raw? They were promoting it before it even happened.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like, I mean, 2 months prior to Hell in Cell and Vengeance, you're already promoting your Survivor Series pay-per-view with The Rock's appearance. It's like, all right, let's just get to Survivor Series and get that money.
And then, of course, when John Cena comes out, it's like, I'm going to pick, let's see, who's he going to pick? Is he going to pick The Rock because we keep seeing all these advertisements saying he's teaming with The Rock? Or is he going to just go, I'm going to pick Kurt Hawkins?
Yeah, I mean, even if he came out and said, all right, I'm going to pick Mick Foley, and then release, maybe Foley comes out next week and says, well, I'm not really in ring shape, but I got a great partner for you. Like, just kind of.
Yeah, something along those lines. Like, he doesn't want to team with The Rock. And then, I don't know, maybe Triple H says, look, we need to represent for WrestleMania and some kind of crap. I don't know.
The only thing that, it'll probably come up during Survivor Series, what happened on Raw with that spinal damage report with Triple H. I'm interested to see where that goes.
The attack from Kevin Nash and everything?
Yeah.
See, I was expecting that Kevin Nash and Triple H would be on opposite sides of a Survivor Series team. And now it seems like they completely threw that out the window because I thought originally that it was going to be The Miz, R-Truth, who else was it? Kevin Nash, and then I think the two other people that I had tentatively written down were Wade Barrett and either Drew McIntyre or Brodus Clay. Now those two don't really make a whole lot of sense because there's not a lot of stuff like interaction between Miz and Truth and somebody like Barrett, and even less for McIntyre and Brodus Clay. But if it's supposed to be a 5-on-5, you need to put somebody in there. But my theory was that Kevin Nash had said before that he wanted to work with Wade Barrett. So if Wade has nothing that he's doing, and he's not really doing anything right now, and that they want to give this push to Brodus Clay, but that they also used to, at the very least, love Drew McIntyre and called him the chosen one, I don't know why they can't figure out a way to add those guys together, especially if the whole faction of the Miz and R-Truth and everybody, that they're working for Vince McMahon. Because if they're working for Vince McMahon, then Drew McIntyre, the so-called chosen one from Vince McMahon, it's a perfect fit. Then they could even do something along the lines at WrestleMania where Drew McIntyre, who a lot of people have been calling a young Triple H, is representative for Vince against Triple H in some kind of a match. I'm not the biggest Drew McIntyre fan, but you got to put away your own personal feelings for what would be good for business and everything like that. But the way that I was thinking was they would be a match between those five, and then John Cena, The Rock, Daniel Bryan, because at the time he was kind of feuding with Wade Barrett, Triple H, and then somebody else. And I don't know who that other person would have been, but they could have figured out somebody. I mean, John Morrison's not doing anything except for jobbing. Why not give him the spot,
Yeah. And they built a lot of this in Vengeance, and I feel like they're going to end up straying away from it. And that's what scares me.
And you know what else is confusing me? And this ties back into Vengeance. The Mark Henry and Big Show situation. Now, I liked the match. for the most part. I mean, you kind of can't get that great of a match out of the two of them together working since they sort of need somebody else to carry them. I like both the guys, but you're not going to have a Shawn Michaels versus Bret Hart situation between Mark Henry and Big Show.
Yeah.
I liked it, and I liked the ending of the match with the ring collapsing, but at the same time, what you had said earlier, as soon as they came up there and it looked like he was going to be doing that superplex, immediately it was like, all right, when's the ring going to collapse?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was just he went up to Big Show went to the ring at the top rope, and I thought when he was going to jump that maybe all right the impact from Big Show onto Mark Henry would do it, but then when they definitely went up to the superplex, it's like all right, that ring's going away.
Now, somebody, I don't remember who it was, so I can't give them credit for it. Somebody had mentioned to me that they thought that the reason that WWE did that was because they didn't want to show the Lesnar footage anymore, and now they have an excuse.
Yeah, and it's true because now that was like one of their huge SmackDown moments,
mm-hmm.
and now that they have Mark Henry doing the Big Show, it's kind of like all right, we're happy that Lesnar's back in the WWE game, but clearly you're never coming back to the company, so
why keep promoting you? You know?
Yeah. And it's just I think these two will have a decent feud. As like you said, as decent as you can get out of these giants. Well, Big Show has decent personality, but Mark Henry, it's like talking to a wall sometimes. But I think it's a good start, and it's something good that can carry SmackDown's main event till the end of the year and kind of keep focus on the World Heavyweight title, but at the same time, let other feuds start building.
One of the things that they got to worry about is the pay-per-view after Survivor Series is TLC, isn't it?
Yes.
I cannot see these two in a tables, ladders, and chairs match.
Exactly, and that's where you can grab somebody like, maybe not necessarily Christian, but someone of Christian size to get on there and like beat Mark Henry because now he's got a lot of different variables thrown in against this giant.
Well,
it'll be interesting to see what they do.
Another thing that they've done is they don't seem to have a real 100% setup for that pay-per-view like they do with Hell in a Cell, where you have to have the two main event matches in Hell in a Cell. It seems like they kind of want to add TLC matches, but then they want to do the chairs matches, which were a god-awful idea. And then they had the tables match with Sheamus beating John Cena. So I could see them doing a Mark Henry versus Big Show tables match or a chairs match because they've been doing this whole thing with Mark Henry picking up a chair and injuring people's feet. Mm-hmm. But if you have it, to me, the idea behind a chairs match is just ridiculous because if everything else is no disqualification, then why isn't it just a no disqualification match?
Yeah.
And I get that they would want to have, like, let's have a table and then a ladder and then a chair. But now that they don't have the ECW title, they can't really do that for 3 world titles or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what they're going to do with this, but they certainly can't have Big Show against Mark Henry in a TLC match because that is not going to end up well.
Yeah. And if they bring some little guy or, like, average-sized guy in the match, I think the best way to kind of make it look like that guy could win is a ladder match because you really can't see Mark Henry climbing the ladder to get the title. And if he did, it would surprise the hell out of everybody.
Right. And if they want to have somebody take the title away from Mark Henry, they could purposely do that, have a ladder match, and then that be the downfall for Henry because if somebody pins Henry, all of that whole build-up that they've done is gone from him being this dominant world champion. But if somebody climbs up to the top and gets it, he can come out and just be like, you didn't beat me. You just, walked up a ladder, and that's all you needed. And it was a, prejudice kind of a match because I'm so big and all this kind of stuff. The only person I can think of that would be in that position to do that, other than Randy Orton, would be Sheamus. But I don't know if it would be a good idea if they went into 2012 with Sheamus as the champion. I don't know.
I honestly, for the World Heavyweight situation, I would like to see Henry carry it to WrestleMania as a monster, just destroying anybody in their path. And that would be the perfect way to build a new main event. Like someone like John Morrison wins the Royal Rumble and shows up in WrestleMania and gets that huge win over Mark Henry, who's been unstoppable for about 6 to 7 months.
I would love to see that. Not just because of Morrison. And if anybody doesn't know, I am a Morrison mark. I think that he's great. Not on the mic, but I think he's great overall. But I am so sick of the Royal Rumble not being used for somebody that can be elevated to that next level. And I would love to see somebody be able to take advantage of that, kind of like what happened with Yokozuna and Bret Hart back in what was it, for WrestleMania 10. They had Yokozuna the previous year win the Royal Rumble, and he beats Bret, and then gets wiped out on the floor because of Hulk Hogan and everything like that. But from King of the Ring onward, Yokozuna was unstoppable, and then Bret comes out, beats Yokozuna for the title after Luger wasn't able to do it, and then it's that big push again. Now Yokozuna never got the championship back, and Bret Hart, went on to everything that he's done. But to me, I would love to see Mark Henry go in as champion for WrestleMania, but I just can't picture who would be able to beat him for that, because Daniel Bryan's got his Money in the Bank, and there's no way that Daniel Bryan is cashing in against Mark Henry at WrestleMania. That's not going to happen. If that happens, I'll buy an extra pair of shoes and eat them. I don't know.
And I agree, because that would be it would be a horrible build-up, because nothing against Daniel Bryan, but he really has terrible mic skills.
Right.
Unless they brought a manager in for one of the two, you have no build-up.
Well, Henry, I think, has been getting a lot better on the mic, but for him to still pull for WrestleMania, I'm a big fan of Henry, and I like him a lot, and I was so glad he won the title, but if you have a John Cena versus The Rock main event, you need your world title matches to be up there, and I can't see Mark Henry, especially against Daniel Bryan, being that kind of a marquee match. Now, they've got months, so he might end up getting more popularity out of that, but even if it was Mark Henry against Randy Orton, who's the top face on SmackDown, we've seen it before, So I'm really concerned about what they're going to do for WrestleMania with the World Heavyweight title. I can only see Randy Orton being in the title match against somebody, but who, I don't know.
And it's going to have to be big, because it kind of reminds me of WrestleMania 19, where Jericho and Michaels went at it. It's like, how do you need a main event like Rock and Austin?
Right.
And if they didn't have those two guys there, the Michaels and Jericho match would have completely null and voided the WWE title match. Even if it was like Triple H versus like Stone Cold, or Triple H versus The Rock, it would have been like, did you see the Michaels Jericho match? And we still do that, but we still know Rock and Austin headlined it.
Yeah, kind of like what happened with Undertaker against Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25. Nobody cared about Triple H against Randy Orton, and since they followed them, everybody was booing it, and the match was just a bore. And they gotta worry about that. I mean, I'm sure Rock and Cena is going to go on last, but they still need something that can lead into that. And if they go with a Mark Henry match, I don't think that there's anything that they can do that can lead into that as well as it should.
Yeah.
But I'm still hoping that Mark Henry and Big Show keep feuding, and I don't know what they're going to do to follow this up at Survivor Series, but I'm assuming that they'll just have some kind of a standard match between the two again, and maybe throw in some kind of a stipulation like they did the Last Man Standing match, so they can't do that. I don't know. They'll figure something out. Maybe they'll make something up on the spot and give it some lame name like that Belfast Brawl crap that they used to do.
Yeah.
And speaking of Last Man Standing, of course, there's that match. Del Rio against John Cena. Better than I expected it to be, but I still agree with everybody that there's too much Super Cena. Even when he's losing this match, he gets about 11. Now, Del Rio spends 2.5 minutes out of the ring when Miz and Truth come in, and then gets up at 9 afterward after he knocks out John Cena for the 10 count. It's like, you really don't need John Cena to be that guy all of the time, and that frustrates me to no end.
Oh, yeah, without doubt. And the one high point for the match for me is when they moved back to the backstage area. I feel like the WWE has stayed away from that for a long time. And it was neat to see it go a little bit back to it.
Yeah, I like the backstage area part a lot. Of course, they weren't as great as they used to be with, like, what do they call it? The Boiler Room Brawl and all that kind of stuff. But with PG product, you can't really do as much of that crap anyway. But it was still something a little bit different from what we're used to seeing, so I like that. And the match was okay. I mean, it was entertaining and everything like that. And some of the spots were kind of cool, and there was the typical attitude adjustment on the table, which we've seen 1,000 times, but it was done okay. It wasn't botched or anything like that. But one of the things that I hated about that is how, beyond the whole Super Cena stuff, is once again they've got a heel champion that can't just win a match. He has to get somebody to help him. And I understand that heels are obviously supposed to be cheats and everything, but if you count the times that WWE has a heel win clean on a match, it's got to be, the ratio is ridiculous. I mean, the Miz and Truth actually won their tag team match in a clean fashion on this night's SmackDown, which surprised the hell out of me. I was expecting Ziggler and Swagger to come out and cost the match for Air Boom or something like that. And the fact that they actually won, even though they're beating the tag team champions and making the champions look kind of weak, was good that it was a solid, clean finish, especially with their good finisher like that.
Yeah, and I agree because Jericho, the part of Chris Jericho's return when he returned to heel was the fact that he was the best in the world, and since he was the best in the world and he would win clean, it was like, God, I hate that prick.
Yeah, because that's the thing too, is if the idea behind a heel is just a guy that you're not supposed to like, well, why can't a guy like that win and it piss you off that he won in a completely clean fashion?
Yeah, at least for today, there's only been like two people I can think of off the top of my head, or maybe three. Jericho's a top guy. Orton, when he was a heel, I don't see how he ever was a face, but when he's heel, he wins clean. It's like, oh God, it's a high school prick that you just don't want to win.
Right,
And
yeah. The guy who gets all the
JBL.
chicks and everything like that, it's...
Mm-hmm. And my third pick would have been JBL because, JBL was such a jerk. And if he won, it was like, oh my God, because he was so good. He was good on a mic. And then he backed it, and it was like, God, you hated him even more because he was right.
Yeah.